be the first to chat with the CEO worldwide of Louis Vuitton about them growing into African markets. Just before the break, we heard about how Louis Vuitton had an entrenched presence in South Africa and in Morocco, and that had created a gateway for other Africans wanting just a touch of that French expression into their local economies. The question really is, how does Louis Vuitton do it with sales that jumped up over 20% in the first quarter of 2010, just post a global recession? It's because of brand equity, we're told. Yves Carcelle is the CEO of Louis Vuitton, and he's our guest tonight. Now, before the break, we were talking about the aspirational values of a growing consumer base in the emerging market economies. We were talking about little surprises to come in Africa, and this takes me now into the area of celebrity endorsements and how you sell Louis Vuitton to a very divergent global public.
I think there are two aspects. One is who we use in our global campaign, in our what we call eternal values campaign. And since the origin of the house is travel, we of course want to speak about travel. But travel is not only a physical travel, it can be a spiritual travel, and it can be also life as a travel. And people who had extraordinary lives, who have been iconic in their field, in their own field, are incredible images of the travel imagined by Louis Vuitton. And when you see Mikhail Gorbachev sitting in his car in front of the Berlin Wall with his Keepall bag, I mean, it's an image that will stay forever in the mind of everybody. Or when you see Keith Richard with the case that we did for him for this campaign, and it was his dream case, because I don't know if you're aware, but he wanted to travel with the guitar that John Lennon offered to him 5 days before he died. So this guitar was so important for Keith that he had for his own life the dream of one day making the guitar case. We did it, and that was an incredible picture. Or Sean Connery. Sean Connery will be for us the James Bond in our memories. And to see Sean Connery, who is now 78, so cool, you know, on the beach of Bahamas with his Keepall waterproof in front of him. I mean, you know, those people, each one in their field, have been extraordinary. And I mean, to have Zidane, Pelé, and Maradona, I mean, yes, their teams didn't go till the end, but I mean, they are over that. I mean, they are icons of football for generations and generations, and to have them together, I think, was quite symbolic.
Let's talk about some of those stories, because when we were looking up some of the celebrities involved in your campaign, Mikhail Gorbachev came up as number 3 in the strangest endorsements category. Is that you've had these superstars, these movie stars, these rock stars, Keith Richards and also Sean Connery, and then the father of glasnost and opening up Eastern Europe. How did you come to getting a former head of state to be involved in your campaign, and what motivates that eclectic mix? Because all of these people have very different life journeys.
True, but I mean, all of them are people also who want to had an extraordinary life, want to give back, and as you know, most of their income goes to charities, and whether it's the climate project or in the case of Mikhail Gorbachev, this Green Cross Foundation, it was a way for them to raise money for a cause that they were willing to endorse, which fits completely our, you know, feeling that a social responsibility of Louis Vuitton, and we are very involved in sustainable development actions all over the world. So, you know, through that, the two of us, we do something that we feel good. And again, it's an extraordinary life. As you mentioned, the world today would probably be different without a Gorbachev.
Okay, now I want to move on to some of the more controversial endorsements and collaborations. We all know the story of Tiger Woods, so we're not going to rehash it on this program. But Louis Vuitton, we're told, took a decision not to dump him as other sponsors had done, but not necessarily to put him at the forefront of campaigns. And similar things with Kate Moss, for instance, where she was being punished by other brands for what was seen as a drug problem. And Louis Vuitton said, we want to use her differently. We don't want to discard her. We think there's still value in this person, but we want to use her differently. That elements of not being punitive towards celebrities and still seeing value in them when the rest of society and the rest of the luxury brand market is panicking. You don't panic. Why is that?
Again, a bit of clarity in the case of Tiger Woods. It's our sister company, Tag Heuer, who was, liaising with Tiger Woods, and they explained that they would not stop the relationship because of that. In the case of Kate Moss, Kate has been a friend of Marc Jacobs since day one. She participated to several of our campaigns. And, we think that when people have done something for you, they stay forever friends and families. And I am very concerned by this peopleization of, celebrities. When Marc Jacobs, especially in his fashion campaigns, not now the value campaign, but the fashion campaign, pick somebody, it's always because he has a good reason. I will remember, for instance, when one of the campaigns 5 years ago, he said, get out of the show. And he said, Yves, I had the feeling that this show was much more energetic than all our competitors. I felt the energy I put in it, and I want to express that energy, somebody like that. And he said, I want Jennifer Lopez. And it was a surprise for everybody, because no one could imagine Jennifer Lopez as a luxury brand campaign. And in fact, usually I don't go to the shooting, but that time the shooting was in Paris, and I couldn't resist to pay a visit at the shooting. At that time she was with Ben Affleck, so I was sitting next to Ben, waiting for Jennifer to get out of the dressing room, and suddenly she's there. She's arriving, singing and dancing in the place, holding the bag like that, and she was the perfect expression of the dynamism and the energy of the show. So, and she will be forever a friend and family of the house, whatever happens to her.
Okay, so you do support your ambassadors, and I think that's very, very important. Are you ever prepared to take on ambassadors who may not be high profile in a pop culture sense, but do very important charitable work for the communities that they live in, especially now that we're talking about Louis Vuitton coming into emerging markets? You won't find global superstars in Africa, with the exception of people like Charlize Theron, but you will find people who are such an entrenched presence in their societies, such phenomenal individuals. No, we would love to, and we are looking very around us, but let's take one of the previous campaign. Annie Leibovitz is not an icon of fashion. However, she's probably one of the greatest photographers in the world. When we learned that Annie had some financial problem, we spontaneously proposed to her to be the image of the campaign. And she's not a young model, but she's an incredible talent. And it's Annie herself who said, "Oh, thank you very much for taking me in the campaign, but my job is always to shoot somebody." And that's how she said, "Okay, I want to be part of your campaign, but I want my friend Mikhail Barashnikov to be with me on the shooting." And I think that was very moving. And we were not looking for, again, peopleization of the campaign, but two individuals with deep heart. If you had to identify two issues that are important to Louis Vuitton today, I know you mentioned climate change earlier on, and that those are issues that some of your ambassadors care about and they have resonance with what you stand for. What would those issues be that you think the world needs to sit up and take notice of?
Well, I think that definitely sustainable development is a message that big companies like ours should dedicate, time and efforts and money to, and we do in everything we do. But we also have signed a global agreement with SOS Children, because we think that we have to give back to the community, and the way to federate all our caritative actions worldwide with education of children, helping children, is something important. And you will see us all over the world, quite discreetly, because you don't need to speak about that every day, but helping caritative action on children.
Just in terms of innovations that can be undertaken in terms of sustainable development, because that's very much at the forefront. We've seen the Copenhagen summit and we're seeing disagreement on how to go forward on the issue. Do you levy companies that are polluters? Do you punish them with a tax? Must government set targets, and do you monitor targets? Should corporates be held accountable in that way? And you're talking about being discreet when the rest of the world is saying no, be vocal, be an example. How do you think people should be going about handling some of these issues?
You know, I don't think companies, corporations should replace governments. It's already, I think, difficult for them to set the rules. But in a funny way, if we have best practice, I think we can influence. It's easier for us to take a decision and implement it. So, you know, I strongly believe to the value of example. You know, for instance, we have decided that probably 60 to 70% of our shipping, because we manufacture in Europe and we sell all over the world, would be through sea link and not air link. We can afford because we have a significant percentage of permanent product. But I mean, that has a very, very strong effect on the climate. So by talking about that, we make other corporations think about it. And again, being the leader of the industry, I think it's our job to give the example. And then probably to the politicians to endorse.
Okay, let's talk about other areas where you've also giving back. There's the Louis Vuitton Foundation for Creation, of which you are a part as a vice president, and it's really about promoting creative expression. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, it's clear that art is very close to our world. We don't oppose art and luxury. And many of us, from, of course, Bernard Arnault, who is the chairman of the group LVMH, to a lot of people at Vuitton, Marc Jacobs, are fascinated by art, because you cannot be in a creative world without having a fascination for artists. And in the case of Louis Vuitton, that started already with the Louis Vuitton family. They were very close to the Impressionists. They have helped many artists. We've been developing collaborations, and Marc Jacobs has been instrumental. I mentioned Steven Sprouse, but Takashi Murakami, Richard Prince. Also, all the artists we commissioned for windows, like Olafur Eliasson, or where we commission pieces of art that we put into the stores, like you know, James Turrell or Teresita Fernandez. And, a lot of them are also participating to exhibitions, and we have this cultural center on the 7th floor of the Champs-Élysées. We are developing more and more art galleries within our stores.
And a final and brief question, now that you've spoken to us about the synergy of Louis Vuitton, the visual arts, the fine art, architecture, all of that, what about fashion design? There is going to come a time where the creative director cannot just be Marc Jacobs, it will have to be somebody else. What's being done about mentoring and identifying a new breed of designers who will be true to the brand and its traditions, but really move you fully into the 21st century?
Well, you know, if you compare the age that Marc Jacobs and Karl Lagerfeld, it means that
they're there for a long time.
Marc can stay for a very, very long time at the head of Vuitton. That's right. best wish. You know, last time we signed for 10 years, and you know, I think he's ready to stay for a very long time, because he's now really in symbiosis with the company. But Marc, you know, like me, I have managers that I grow around me. Marc has grown people in the, you know, women's wear studio, in the shoe studio, in the men's studio. So it's not a one-man show, and it never sees himself as a one-man show. There's probably 30 stylists and designers that are growing behind him. But honestly, my wish is that he stays for a long, long period of time, the face of, you know, our creativity. He deserves that.
We thank you so much for being with us on CNBC today. Yves Carcelle, who is the CEO of Louis Vuitton Worldwide, talking to us about the company's growth. You've been watching Captains of Industry. Thank you very much for joining us.